perfect spring day here, and we have as our special guest a Consul of Israel to the New York area, Sharon Regev, and Barbara Fix is with me. This is Rabbi Amiel Wohl speaking. Barbara, will you introduce our special guest today?
Oh, I certainly will, with great pride. We welcome Sharon Regev at the consulate. Sharon has a wonderful background. She is an LLB from Tel Aviv University, an LLM from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So she has brought her legal expertise as a member of the Israeli bar in various capacities. She actually has spent time in Lagos, Nigeria, because she worked with domestic and international NGOs, and then having spent time in Montreal, Canada, Sharon is of great interest and has global perspective for us. So we welcome you, Sharon. You've been assigned to the Consulate of Israel here in New York. What is your specific title, and what is your sphere of endeavor and your influence here in New York now?
Good morning, Barbara, and good morning, Rabbi Wohl, and good morning to all the listeners. It's a great pleasure being with you here today. My name is Sharon Regev, and I'm the Consul for Public Affairs at the Israeli Consulate here in New York. We're in charge of the tri-state region, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And my specific fields of activities are academia, interfaith, inter-ethnic relations, education system, and generally speaking, lifestyle, Israeli lifestyle. I try to bring Israel to the Americans and to show how Israelis are and how Israel is.
That's wonderful. You have come, in fact, from Montreal, Canada. That was your last posting. Do you see differences? I know it's a short time. You've only been here for a short time, so you're still in a learning position. What are the differences in how Israel is regarded or perceived in Canada as compared to the United States?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, indeed. I came here about half a year ago, and I have to say here it is much warmer and makes life much easier. But generally speaking, Montreal is a great place. Montreal is part of Quebec, a state within the Canadian Federation. And indeed, there are differences between Quebec and Canada, and Quebec and Canada and the United States. Generally speaking, I think that here we have a more balanced view of Israel. Whereas in Quebec in particular, we saw a lot of pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli sentiment. Again, the rest of Canada is different than Quebec because of the specific political situation in Quebec. As you probably heard, the Quebecers, they had their own political aspirations of separation from Canada. They had their own political parties who tried to bring this separation. They had 2 different referendums about separating from Canada. And they are very much connected to France in particular and Europe in general. They speak French. They have specific bills to encourage people to advertise in French and to have their daily dealings in French. So the French influence is very significant in Quebec, and thus the general sentiment regarding the Middle East is very much like the European sentiment. And here we have a more friendlier attitudes, and it is much easier to serve here on that respect.
Right. Montreal is fascinating because I believe that they have a sort of open immigration policy and encouraging more French people to come to Quebec and come to Montreal. I'm not sure what sort of immigration is it. Is there a lot of immigration of French immigrants, and are they? I am from Africa, and I know there are a lot of French-speaking countries in
Correct.
Africa. So where is the immigration? Is there immigration, and where is it coming from, Sharon?
Yes, there are big waves of immigrants who come from North Africa, from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, other French-speaking countries from North Africa, and from Lebanon. In fact, in Quebec, they had a survey and they found out that Arabic is the second most popular language on campuses after French. English became the third language.
You can call in if you have a question or a comment to ask Sharon Regev, the Israel Council for Public Affairs, Israeli Council for Public Affairs. You can call us at 914-636-0110. We'll be glad to take your calls.
This morning you met with a lovely group of people. I think they were predominantly Jewish, but I think you're meeting with a lot of groups and a lot of individuals. What is your impression of their knowledge of Israel, their support from Israel, of the support for Israel? Do they understand the situation, or as we call it in Hebrew, the matzav, in which Israel is finding itself, the complexities? Or do you find that you need to explain, and how do you go about explaining the real complexities as you have to do this morning?
Yes, well, there is just like in every society, there's a great variation and very, very different number of views. Some do have a lot of knowledge about Israel and they are very much attached. Maybe they have family members in Israel, maybe they have visited in Israel, but some really do not know, and we do need to educate them about Israel and teach them about Israel and show them the different faces of Israel. Many people have an image of Israel which they derives from the pictures they see on CNN and other media outlets. And basically, I really need to put it in the right perspective and to show them also the other faces of Israel, the science and technological face of Israel, the amount of innovation that comes from Israel, Israel's contribution to developing countries in the field of agriculture and humanitarian aid. Israel is one of the leading countries when it comes to humanitarian aid. We were very, very active in African countries since the 60s because we do have a lot of expertise when it comes to agriculture. So we wanted to share this knowledge and expertise with these developing countries. We held a lot of courses and trainings in these countries, and we do have a very nice, varied program in these areas. So it is very important for me to show these people and educate them about the different aspects of Israel and the Israeli society. We are a mosaic of different cultures and different origins, and it's very important that people will not see Israel in a very monolithic way, but realize that it is such a diverse society. We have people from Ethiopia, we have people from Eastern Europe, we have people from North Africa. We really have a mosaic of peoples and cultures, which makes it a fascinating place. My home, I love it.
Wonderful. That's on the positive side of it. And on a territorial side, the size of Israel, and how do you feel about Israel surrounded on many fronts, mostly hostile to Israel? You spoke this morning about how many Arabic countries surround Israel, and I think the general public, Jews and non-Jews, are not very aware of some of the dangers and the size of Israel. Maybe you'd like to share that with us.
Correct, yes. Many times when I start my public my speaking engagement, I want to put things in the right context, and sometimes I find it quite amazing that people do not realize the size of Israel. Israel is smaller than the state of New Jersey. And it is the only Jewish state in the world, whereas there are 22 Arab states and 56 Islamic states. Also, to put everything in context, there are only 14 million Jews in the world, but there are about 1.5 billion Muslims and 2 billion Christians. So people really must have this perspective talking about Israel. We are the landmass of New Jersey, and we are surrounded with all these Arab countries. They have the landmass of the entire United States. So this is not a very easy neighborhood to be in, but we are looking forward for a better future, a brighter future, and we are looking forward to have peace with all our neighbors.
How are you going about making representation or having an impact on other religions, on the Christians and the Muslims and other interfaith groups? So, do you do many speaking engagements? Are you reaching out to educate?
Yes, definitely. Actually, what we would like to do is to build friendships and build partnerships based on the same core values that we share. We share the same values. We are all monotheistic religions, and we share the same democratic values: equality, freedom of religion, freedom of speech. And based on these strong values that we share, we want to build our friendships, our partnerships, to discuss the achievements and to discuss the challenges we face, and basically to reach out to these people and educate them about Israel, talk to them about the different challenges that we face, and try to build coalitions together with them.
Right. Wonderful. Is the media of much help? I know I was actually in London earlier, it was during in fact, I was there over the time of the war, the Lebanese war, when Israeli soldiers were captured, and I found the BBC very biased and turned to Sky News, and I found that a real problem. What has your perception been of the media in America, the newspapers, the internet? Do you feel that they're doing a reasonable job of presenting Israel's challenges as well as her achievements?
Well, everything is relative in life, as you said. I think that relatively the American media is very professional and balanced. Again, I come from Montreal. In Montreal, they are very much dependent on European media, and we found the European media very superficial and very unbalanced, sometimes very, very biased. And actually, there was also an incident, if I'm not mistaken, with one of these media outlets who purposely hired, they had a photographer who purposely hijacked the photograph he took and portrayed it in a different way than the reality, and then they had to fire it. So basically, with the new media, we have a lot of bloggers that explore and look for inaccuracies with the coverage of the media, and we are very thankful for their help. All these good Samaritans who take the media coverage as their own interest, and they are looking for a balanced, truthful coverage. We thank them, and we wish that all the media outlets will strive to have the most professional, balanced coverage.
That's very important. I've actually been alerted and have met with a couple of people who show that very often what is said in Arabic and what is said in English. There's an organization called Memory. I'm sure you're familiar with Memory, or Palestinian Media Watch, that is able to do comparisons. I certainly don't speak Arabic, but it's fascinating to see how you can say two different things, especially as diplomats. You say something in English and the exact opposite to your own people. So I think it's very important that we keep our finger on the pulse as democracies. Israel is a democracy in the Middle East, and the United States, Canada, Europe, that we keep our fingers on what is happening, that the translations in the media are accurate, as well as that the media is doing its research. Sharon, I wanted to ask you, people are touting the Saudi-led peace initiative of total Arab country recognition of Israel. If Israel returned to the 1967 borders, why is Israel reluctant to take the Arabs up on this initiative? What is the feeling about that?
Well, generally speaking, Israel welcomes the Arab League initiative, and Israel reaches out its hand for peace. But again, the question is, what is the price? And if it is a sincere initiative. Just this week, our Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni met with her colleagues, the Foreign Minister of Egypt and Jordan, to discuss how to push forward the Arab League initiatives. The Arab League initiative basically talks about normalization of relations between Israel and the Arab world, but they want all the, what they refer to as Palestinian refugees, to be able to go back to their physical homes in Israel, in the state of Israel. And that basically is contradictory to the idea of two states for two peoples.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back with Sharon Regev, Consul for Israel to New York in the tri-state area.
How much control do you have over your lawnmower blade? Can you command it to stop whenever you briefly step away from your mower to clear your mowing path without shutting off the engine? Well, probably not, unless you had the Toro Recycler lawnmower with Toro's ingenious Blade Overdrive system, or for short, the BOS. The Blade Overdrive system on Recycler model 20047 at $429. It's the lowest BOS model on the market, and you can see it at Mario Bulfamonte & Sons, 75 Portman Road, New Rochelle. Call them 914-636-4428. The Toro Blade Overdrive system. Toro, count on it.
This is Ruby D. As I travel around the country, I'm struck by this unique radio station's extraordinary relationship with this community. There's always something happening right here at 1460 1460, and most of it very good.
It started some years ago on Long Island when two gifted interior designers who just happened to be sisters, Mary Middlemiss and Nancy Rutigliano, combined their resources and remarkable talents to create twice as nice interiors. The sisters and their unique design service have today become famous for their tasteful work among substantial and discerning individuals and clients in Westchester, Manhattan, the Hamptons, the North Shore, who now rely on them to redo primary residences, country homes, and in-town apartments. As designers, Mary and Nancy quite understand that decorating a home, an office, or apartment can be a pretty frustrating and draining process. Twice as nice interiors makes it easy. And unlike many so-called decorators, the sisters, each possessed of a keen eye and exquisite taste, ensure that the rooms you have in mind reflect your personality and accommodate your family's lifestyle. They specialize in sensible floor plans, lighting, fabric, wallpaper, paint and color coordination, plus bathroom and kitchen layouts and marble, granite, and tile selection, all at reasonable decorator prices. It's called Twice as Nice Interiors, created by those two talented and designing sisters from Long Island. Call Mary or Nancy at 631-581-9291, 631-581-9291, or visit twiceasniceinteriors.com.
Now, there are two in Westchester. Buffalo Wild Wings. Two great new family-friendly restaurants for you and yours. It's like eating with your entire family in an ESPN control room. Both Buffalo Wild Wings have great food with the best wings, wraps, salads, and burgers around. Dine with your friends and family surrounded by more than 50 high-tech TV sets. Sportsmen and their ladies and sportswomen and their guys will enjoy golf, basketball, football, and soccer at Buffalo Wild Wings. All this plus great food in a family-friendly sports environment. There's a Buffalo Wild Wings Grill and Bar in New Rock City with easy parking in the New Rochelle Municipal Garage. And visit the Buffalo Wild Wings in downtown Portchester in the newly developed waterfront section at Westchester and Main, just 1 block from the train station in the same building as Lowe's Theaters. You're lucky in Westchester with two exciting Buffalo Wild Wings, now in New Rochelle and Portchester. Check out BuffaloWildWings.com. Buffalo Wild Wings. You have to be here.
The voice of Westchester, 1460 WVOX.
We're so pleased to be with you. We're back right now with Sharon Regev, Consul for the State of Israel to the tri-state area. Barbara Fix is here as well and has been asking Sharon some very interesting probing questions. We were just talking about the Saudi Peace Initiative, so-called, which seems to be endorsed by many people, And Israel is cooperating with that, but has some very serious reservations about the integrity of the Saudi peace plan. Can you go back to that again, Sharon?
Yes, as I explained before, Israel really looks for peace, yearns for peace, and wants peace. But we have our red lines, and when the Arab League summit met just recently, they included to the original initiative condition that talks about the physical return of Palestinian refugees to their homes. Now, one must understand that when they talk about Palestinian refugees, these are not current refugees. These are refugees from 60 years ago, and they are talking now about their children, their great-children, and their great-great-children. They have settled already in other countries, but they are still looking for returning to their physical homes. Well, we are talking about a solution of 2 states for 2 people. I think this was the solution since the creation of the State of Israel, when the United Nations talked about the division plan of a Palestinian state and a Jewish state. This was forever the solution, and bringing back what they refer to as Palestinian refugees, including their children, great-children, and great-great-children, that means basically the destruction of the Jewish homeland, because from a demographic point of view, there will be no longer a Jewish state. What we say is that these refugees supposed to go back, they should go back to the Palestinian country, the Palestinian state, to be established.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me, Sharon, because if we're talking about, firstly, we're talking about 60 years ago. So those people would have been like 70, 80 if they're still alive today. We're also talking about, my understanding it was the majority of people that left willingly. In 1948, when those refugees left, Israel at no point said to them, leave. Israel in 1948 was attacked by the Arab countries. It was predominantly the Grand Mufti that said to these Palestinians, Arabs, they weren't even called Palestinians then, the Arabs who were living there, leave this country, we're going to attack Israel. Once we demolish Israel, get rid of the Jews, you can come back and take over their homes. Now, you can correct me if I am correct on that. There should be no question, no right of return. The United Nations, who we regard as the world body for creating peace, should turn around and give the facts and say this is not an issue, as opposed to keeping this whole bogus issue alive. And also, from what I understand, there were approximately 600,000 refugees. I think the numbers vary, sometimes 600,000 to 800,000. If you start hearing at children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, well, the Jews were here 3 million years ago. We're the oldest people. We should lay claim to most of the world. That's not the way it works. The other flip side of it is in 1948, many, many Jews were living in Iraq, in Iran, in many of the Arab countries. They did not leave voluntarily. They were forced out after their money was confiscated. Some people were murdered, and the rest of them were forced out. Correct. And Jews are not welcome in these Arab countries. So the whole thing seems like a fairy tale, a negative fairy tale, a fiction. So I think one should put this issue to rest, and I feel that Israel should be even stronger in dealing with this issue, and Israelis who were forced out should ask for reparations from Iran and Iraq to the tune of probably hundreds of millions of dollars at this stage.
Yes, you're right, 100%. It's very important to raise the issue of 800,000 Jewish refugees that were expelled from Arab countries after their money was confiscated and their homes. And if there is going to be a solution for all the refugees, then we have to take into consideration all the different refugees in that region, not only the Palestinian ones, but definitely also the Jewish ones that were expelled from all these Arab countries.
This is going forward right now. Well, you know, one of the things that distresses me is that everyone is still talking about the roadmap, which leads to a Palestinian state living side by side with Israel. The roadmap endorsed by Russia, the European community, the UN, and our own United States. But it seems to me that the Palestinians themselves are not really interested in a state side by side with Israel, that now they seem to only be interested in a state which includes the territory of Israel, which will be called Palestine. So the question is, why does everybody else seem to want to pursue this when the Palestinians themselves don't want to pursue it? Do you have that evaluation yourself today?
You know, it takes two to tango, and if we want peace, we must have partners for peace. In 2006, the Palestinians chose the Hamas to lead their Palestinian Authority. We were very much disappointed by that, because the Hamas charter calls for the continuation of terror activities against Israel, and basically does not recognize the right of Israel to exist. And this is the current unity government that is governing the Palestinian Authority. A major part of it is the Hamas movement, and still till this moment the Hamas charter does not recognize Israel's right to exist. So in many of your observations, you are right. There are parts of the Palestinian society that do not want to live in peace side by side, because they do not recognize our right to live there. And they want to have the destruction, to bring to the destruction of the state of Israel. And we will not let them do that.
Well, it's also interesting, Ahmadinejad, who is so vocal from Iran, calls upon the destruction of Israel. He denies there ever was a Holocaust. And, you know, the call to genocide should be condemned again by the United Nations. How does a leader of one country call upon for the destruction of another country? And he says he intends to destroy Israel. He's working on it. We're not sure whether his bomb nuclear weapons are 6 months away or 2 years away. Either way, 2 years away is around the corner. I mean, we remember very clearly the turn of the century now, when we weren't sure, as we went into the 2001, whether the computers would crash, airlines would fall out of the sky, and that was 7 years ago. Iran is going to be equipped with the most dangerous weapon of all time in a matter of months, and calling for the destruction of Israel. Where is the United Nations in all of this?
Correct. And this is a regime that regularly violates human rights. This is a terror sponsoring state. This is a state that calls to wipe off Israel from the map of the world. And now they want these nuclear weapons. I agree with you. We have to take Ahmadinejad's words, but we have to take it seriously, and to refer to his declaration by the word. We must implement effective economic sanctions on Iran, and then we won't need any military action. But we have to take it seriously. This is a threat to the entire world's security and peace.
It's almost like there's a distraction. I feel that America is focusing on Iraq when the biggest danger is next door in Iran. You know, Iran has actually been funding Hezbollah through Syria, and Hezbollah is a danger on Israel's border. Maybe you want to just elaborate on what's happening on Israel's border at this stage, and how Israel is threatened.
We see generally a rise in extremism in the Middle East, and we see Iran, a power that calls for Islam to dominate the entire world. This is a threat, as I said, this is a threat for the entire Western world. This is a threat to all democratic nations, to all peace-loving nations. And it should be regarded as the number one threat on our agenda. And I think that together with all our allies in the Western world, we will be able to implement effective economic sanctions that will bring to the end of this threat.
Well, I'd like to comment. Dick Cheney, the Vice President of the United States, was a few days ago on the aircraft carrier, the John Stennis, and he warned the Iranians not to block the flow of oil through the Persian Gulf, not to get any ideas about their controlling the flow of oil in that part of the world, because something like 1/2 of all the oil in the world goes through the Straits of Hormuz there. And I think that part of the reason for the United States heavy installations in that part of the world, the aircraft carriers are there, the United States military forces are there, that if the United States had to move against Iran or had to move into Saudi Arabia, the United States is there and is able and ready to do that without having to stage an entire mission, which would take weeks to get ready for that. So I think that we are in that part of the world, the United States, and we are so pleased that Israel is an ally in this struggle against the efforts at world domination by this type of Islam represented by the Iranian regime. And of course, you representing Israel have that very important task of explaining to our American people just how much of an ally. I heard, for example, that the United States military forces in the Middle East are supplied with food from Israel, basically, that the troops in Iraq and the troops stationed elsewhere are eating food grown in the Holy Land. Wow. And then I heard also that all the United States fleet is serviced in the port of Haifa. They come into Haifa where they're serviced and where they're kept in top-notch condition. So all kinds of things are going on right now that the public doesn't hear about. You know about these things, but it's part of your duty maybe not to tell all these things that you know. So I'm not discouraged by the United States being in that part of the world, and I certainly don't think that the United States should pack up and leave that part of the world. Well, if we left that part of the world, we would leave it in the hands of Iran and some of these other radical, dangerous groups who would then control our oil supply, much of it.
Right, and there would be an arms race. But I think sanctions is a good idea. Coming from South Africa, personally, I saw, and I was not in favor of sanctions against South Africa because I felt it would hurt the poorer black people during the apartheid era. It certainly worked. What is your feelings about economic sanctions in Iran? Do you think that's a way to go? We're talking with Sharon Regev. Our phone number here, we at WVOX. Please call in 914 area code 636-0110. What is your feeling, Sharon, about sanctions against Iran?
I definitely think that we want to work together with the international community, and we want the international community to understand it is a threat to the world's peace, and we must act responsibly. And the first way to act is by implementing effective economic sanctions, meaning to invest in terror-free states, to withdraw investments from states that sponsor terrorism, and continue from there. But I think that if it will be an effective tool, then we may not need to consider more severe actions.
In fact, I'm hearing there's a large move now to make sure that pension funds, defined benefits, do not invest in companies that are doing business with Iran. And in fact, oil companies, American companies based in America, should be monitored to make sure that some of their subsidiaries in Europe or elsewhere are not doing business with Iran. And that way we could move away from catastrophic situation of a nuclear Iran and revert to a better peaceful situation. So I hope that is followed through.
Well, I know that last week, for example, I know that you, Sharon Regev, and you, Barbara Fix, attended several events together in Manhattan, in New York City, that you went, for example, to the meetings of CAMRA. What is CAMRA? Could you explain that And what do they try to achieve? Why are organizations like Camera necessary? We're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about this a little more.
This is meteorologist Steve Pelletieri from Ion Weather. It's springtime and summertime is coming up quickly, but you still may have bills or have to bill for this past winter's snow and ice removal services. If you need past weather data for anywhere, take this number down, 1-877-267-8807 for past weather data or snow totals from this past winter. Now, this weather data is not free, but the information provided will solve problems. What kind of problems? Answering questions, like what the weather was for past accidents or slip and fall investigations, or how much snowfall fell and when, for law firms, insurance companies, and construction companies, and snow plowers and property managers alike. Call toll-free 1-877-267-8807. Ion Weather data and storm totals. We just made the weather a little easier to manage. Ion Weather. Call toll-free 1-877-267-8807.
From the historic city of New Rochelle, home of Jack Scarangella, Superintendent of Schools Linda Kelly, Judge Ken Rudolph, and the Sound Shore Medical Center of Westchester, the great and growing hospital for you and yours.
Whatever the question, the answer is always just a phone call away, thanks to 1-866 I don't know. From a reliable plumber to the phone number of your favorite restaurant, 1-866 I don't know has all the information you're looking for, and it's free. Tune in Wednesdays at 10:30 a.m. for a live taste of all that's at your fingertips when calling 1-866 I don't know. Owner and host Greg Bray will bring you answers to any and all of your questions live on the air. So listen and earn an opportunity to be a lucky winner just by calling your questions in during 1-866 I don't know live. There's a winner every show, and the next one could be you. That's every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m.
I'm a mother. It's my nature to protect my daughter. So when she told me she wanted to join the Guard, my gut reaction was to worry for her safety.
But I've always trusted my son and supported his decisions. So as hard as it was to imagine my son being a soldier, it was harder to imagine his future without the Guard.
The Guard will give her money for college, real-world job skills.
And I'm proud of it.
Your son or daughter can serve your community in the National Guard. Call 1-800-GO-GUARD and ask about the job skills they'll gain.
Sponsored by the New York National Guard, aired by the New York State Broadcasters Association and this station.
The voice of Westchester, 1460 WVOX.
Yes, we're back. This is our radio show, The Rabbi and the Judge. We're talking with Consul Sharon Regev from the State of Israel. We've been dealing with some very interesting subjects. Now, we know that the 40th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem is about to take place. That was right after the Six-Day War, when Israel won that tremendous victory, and Jerusalem was able to be reunited, and people at last were able to have access to the holy places of their religion, which had been cut off for many of them by the Jordanian occupation of part of Jerusalem. And now, with this 40th anniversary of Jerusalem's reunification, it's very odd that many of the states, many of the countries of the world are not happy about that reunification, act as if Jerusalem should be redivided again. How do you feel about that, Consul Regev?
We are very unhappy and discouraged by their decision not to celebrate together with us. Again, Jerusalem is and will be the eternal capital of the Jewish people. For 3,000 years, we had Jerusalem as the main thought of ours. We pray 3 times a day. Rabbi, you can elaborate on that. We pray 3 times a day for Jerusalem. When we get married, we bring Jerusalem, and we say that we will never forget Jerusalem. This is a very important, this is a very, very central issue in our belief and in our identity. And Jerusalem will be forever our united capital.
Right. Well, you know what always disturbs me about this subject is that Jerusalem isn't even mentioned once in the Koran, not once. And in our Bible, it's mentioned something like 637 times, but not once in the Quran. And Islam has all these holy cities. We hear about them in Iraq and Iran all the time.
Mecca and Medina.
Mecca and Medina, and they pray toward Mecca and Medina. And of course, there's an important mosque in Jerusalem, which Israel gave as a gift to them to control that area within Jerusalem. But to act as if Jerusalem has a religious significance to them is just contrary to the facts.
No, it has religious significance to the Christians.
To the Christians,
And what is
correct.
interesting is that I, as a very young girl in high school, was taken to Israel in 1966. And I stayed at the King David Hotel, looked outside, and Jerusalem was a mess under the Jordanians. The Jordanians were controlling it. There were soldiers everywhere. But Christians nor Jews were allowed to go into the old city to see our own heritage, the Christian heritage, the Jewish heritage. So now to give it back under Arab control would affect all peoples of the world. So I do not understand, and I was terribly disappointed when our own American ambassador to Israel, Richard Jones, was not even attending a special session of the Israeli parliament on Monday to celebrate the 40 years of the reunification of Jerusalem. And the German embassy informed the Israelis that the European Union would not be represented either. I wonder if it's a lack of knowledge, ignorance. But I think Christians and Jews alike should insist that Israel controls Jerusalem.
I think they're still playing the Arab card, meaning that they're still trying to make it sound like the Arabs really have a right. They're still not recognizing the fact that Israel, in a war of defense, self-defense, gained these areas. This has been a consistent position. I'll tell you what really bothers me is that the United States Congress every year passed that resolution that said the United States should build its embassy in Jerusalem and not in Tel Aviv. And every year the President of the United States, who each time when they're running for re-election says, oh, we're going to make sure that the capital of Israel is Jerusalem and is recognized by us as such. Each time the presidents have picked up the waiver. President Clinton did it again and again and refused to fulfill the will of Congress and build the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. Did you know that? And
No, I
now,
did
of course,
not.
President Bush has done the same thing. So it's not a question of the Democrats or the Republicans, but every one of them has yielded to this, what I would call phony, baloney, whatever kind of pressure it is, and not to recognize Israel's right to a united Jerusalem.
Sharon, you spoke this morning and it was very interesting. Israel demands that Israel be recognized, and you mentioned 3 important criteria that Israel is demanding before discussing peace initiatives. Possibly you'd share that with us again?
Yes, definitely. These are benchmarks that the quartet decided on. First of all is the recognition of the right of Israel to exist.
We'll take a phone call and we'll come right back to this important question. Hello, caller.
Hello, Rabbi Wall. May the Lord bless you.
Thank you.
And your guest. I just wanted to stand side by side along with you, sir, in this fight against tyranny. And we're not going to be silenced by the anti-Semitism around the world. I tell my neighbor who came from Israel recently, I said, your country is the best friend we have right now. You, Australia, maybe a handful of others. But I think slowly and surely our friends are going to come around. And they're not going to be afraid. And the reason is because of the courage of Israel, displayed by that tremendous teacher who knowingly laid down his life for his friends. And that's just one little example of the courage that we need right now. And we're sorely lacking it in the United States, I'm sad to say, among the civilian population here. Some of us get it, and others don't. We're never going to go back to the September 10th world. It's just not going to happen. There's a lot of wishful thinking going on. And I want to applaud your courage, both of you, because it's getting more difficult to stand up. I guarantee you, sir, I was on the radio last week at WVOX supporting America and the cause of freedom. Immediately, I can count several times where I was denounced as a person out of touch with reality. I was told that I was fed garbage, that I eat garbage. I was told that I live in La La Land. It went on and on. But I'm telling people, and you know this already, Rabbi, because no one knows it better than the descendants of people who had to survive the Holocaust, that you are going to be under a serious trial. People are going to attack you left and right. Even some of the conservatives have lost their backbone. You know, the president is not a conservative, but I'm going to stick with him side by side up until the end.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the comment. It's very helpful, very encouraging. We'll keep going, keep calling, talk to you again soon. Let's go back now what Sharon was talking about. Barbara, you had asked her.
About the criteria that the red line, the basic three tenets.
Yes, these are the conditions that were set by the Quartet, the European Union, the United Nations, America, and Russia. And basically they talk about Israel's right to exist, the recognition of its right to exist, the denouncing of terror, and the acknowledgement of previous agreements that were signed between Israel and the Palestinian people. All these three conditions were not met by the Hamas government nor by the unity government in the Palestinian Authority currently.
Beautiful. Right, that's very important. Thank you for sharing those.
Yes. And it's also very important to put what our caller just said, to put everything in the context of global terrorism, because we see the ongoing terrorist attacks around the world, from Madrid to Amman, from London to Jerusalem, and they all prove the fact that this is a battle. This battle is global, it is one, and it is between the extremists and the moderates, and we must stand together as one against this extremism. Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, and the Hamas, these are all organizations which uphold extreme ideological views, and together with states like Iran that are founded on radical ideologies, they are a threat to the entire world's peace.
Thank you, Sharon. There has not been a major suicide bombing in the last few months, fortunately. So a lot of people are under the misconception that there are no attempts. Is this the case, or what is?
No, there are ongoing attempts day in, day out, and the only reason that we do not hear about successes in brackets is thanks to the good work of the security authorities of Israel.
And this is something that the United States, I see, is facing constantly with the Fort Dix attempted killing of soldiers who had rescued Albanians and given them safe haven in New Jersey. And
this is our
this is the appreciation. It's just like that young Arab girl who was very, very badly burnt, and Israel has a policy of treating Arabs, anybody who's injured, anybody who's wounded, is welcome to have the finest medical treatment in Israel. And when she was healed, she turned around with a suicide bomb and went back to the same hospital to kill the doctors, nurses, staff, patients, to blow up the hospital where she had been treated.
This is a horrible story, and again, you talked before about the next generation. And unfortunately, we are witnessing a tendency of brainwashing the younger generation. And we hear in the Palestinian media and newspapers, we hear about them glorifying martyrhood. And when little children are being asked what they want to do when they grow old, and they say they want to become shaheeds, they want to become martyrs, this is really terrible, because this is the future. And if these people are going to kill themselves for Allah and for their extreme religious ideology of dominating the world, this is really dangerous for all of us.
It's dangerous, and it's also abuse of children, to teach children to hate. Again, I ask the United Nations to pass a resolution condemning teaching of young children hatred.
Well, I think the great religions of the world teach love. In Christianity, they teach love. They even say, love your enemies. In Judaism, we're taught to love one another and love other people. And if Islam is a great religion, then let's hear the religious leaders of Islam, let's hear them publicly say, love one another, stop hating others. It doesn't say throughout the Quran that you're supposed to hate others. It says the opposite. It says within the Quran that you should love other people, peoples of other backgrounds. But where are the voices of Islam? If Islam purports to be a great religion and even claims to be the best religion, can there be a religion that doesn't teach love and that doesn't emphasize love over killing and hate and suicide bombing?
Again, I think that the world divides now between moderates and extremists. And if you ask moderate Muslims, they will tell you a lot about the love preaching in Islam. But again, when you have radical, extreme, fundamental activists, they will talk about dominance and power and war. This is very dangerous for us.
Sharon Regev, I wanted to ask you, it's very worrisome as we see Syria massing its forces on the border, demanding to take some territory from Israel, what we call the Golan Heights. We see on the other side, we see Gaza, which is a tinderbox not only of Qassam rockets, but now having Katyushas. If I'm not mistaken, that it's a very dangerous area in Gaza. We see the Lebanese border where the United Nations, there was the 1701, I think was the resolution.
Correct,
1701. And yet Hezbollah have got as many weapons as they had before, in defiance of the United Nations, which is not really being any protector of Israel. I'm really worried about Israel, this tiny little country the size of New Jersey, being attacked again by more than one Arab country. What is the prognosis?
Well, we are strong, and together with our very good allies, we are even stronger, and we cannot reveal any understanding towards terror, and we must fight it. And I think if there is one conclusion after this past summer war in Lebanon and after the Winograd report, is that the next campaign is going to be very decisive.
Very good. Well, we're very happy to have had the opportunity to speak with Sharon Regev. She represents the state of Israel and a refreshing kind of diplomat who is friendly, down to earth, informed, and her position, public affairs, public relations, is to get out in the field and speak. If you're listening to this broadcast and you like to have Sharon Regev present Israel's view of things, particularly if you're part of church groups, civic groups, call me at 914-235-1800. Call me, Rabbi Amiel Wohl, and we'll put you in touch with the Israel Consulate. We'll make sure that you have a speaker who can explain to you why Israel is so important in the world and to the United States. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon Regev. This has really been very special. I appreciate your time explaining to us what is happening. We appreciate your country and what you do to keep the United States safe.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and thank the United States and the Americans for their friendship and for our shared values. Thanks.